in on some of this than a lot of the things that, that we push often in church.
Yeah, exactly.
That, this is holiness.
Amen.
Now this is holiness. When you go through all of this and your mind just automatically goes to giving thanks to God, that's holy. That's that separation. That's that.
And also it shows holiness on the part of the church, because here Peter is in a hopeless situation. 16 soldiers here. The church knows that.
Right.
They know what Herod's going to do.
Right.
It just seems like something, ain't no hope for him.
What's the use in even praying?
But the church believed God's promises and believed in God so much that they just continued in prayer without ceasing.
Yes.
And that shows their dedication. And that's holiness.
It does. Yeah. And that's that separation. And it would pay us, I think, a little better if we sort of turn that direction rather than a lot of the responses that we have and the direction that we go.
It's good to know what real holiness is.
It is. You're right, brother. You're right, because it's painted.
There is a big misconception of what holiness is in our churches today.
Absolutely. There is a lot of pictures painted with it, but we see right here what true holiness is. Which if you look at that word holiness, it's actually just separation.
Right.
So in my mind, what my mind tells me is holiness is me living outside of what's normal. So that's my response. That's my heart. Everything about me is outside of the normal. So it would be normal to think, God, why am I here? Or like you were talking with the church.
Sorry.
I hate that for old Peter.
I guess it's the Lord's will.
Yep.
You got anything to eat?
Yeah. You're exactly right, brother. You are exactly right. And then gather together and somebody sings the song about that they sung at Mama's funeral, and I shed a couple of tears and say, oh, that's holiness, and I've still got the Spirit of God, and we've just moved so far away.
That's true.
From what was solid and kept people, and you're exactly right. I hate it, but an old dude probably. I heard that cousin Elmo down there told him, dude, don't go in that house preaching because you're gonna get caught.
He should have known better.
He should have known better. It's his own fault. Yeah, I do know. But we're seeing something completely outside of the norm. We're seeing holiness here.
Absolutely.
Okay, you got anything else?
No, sir.
I think I've took us down several rabbit holes.
No, that's good. That's good.
Okay, now verse 12. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. So now, again, here we're seeing this, one of the houses where people had gathered together praying. If I'm seeing this right, it's like Peter starts to think now. Now that, his first response, thank you, Lord, it was the Lord that got me out of there. Now he's thinking, okay, now
what should I do?
Yes, there you go.
I know what.
Yeah, they're down at Mary, John Mark's mama's house, having prayer meeting.
I'll just go reunite with them.
Yeah, so, then of course, here we go again, another rabbit hole. This chapter is one of them that, there's just things that just keep rolling in my mind, thinking about me, myself, and this early church, and their mindset and mine. Now, let's just kind of be honest, and I'll say for me, ask myself, now I just escaped the jaws of death for the sake of the gospel. I've got out, I've got an open course.
It'd be a good time to disappear.
Absolutely. Hey, when God, he's going to kill me, and I ain't going to be able to help nobody else if I'm dead. So let me skedaddle out of here.
I'll hide out in the woods for a few months, and
exactly,
I'll jump back on the scene.
Yep. But the first thing when Peter considered it was, hey man, they having prayer meeting down at Mary's house.
And you know what? If you're Herod and you wake up and see what's just happened, where's the first place you're going to go?
Down there where that bunch is gathered.
Peter knows that. Peter knows that's where Herod's going to focus his attention is on the rest of these guys. Wherever they're at, that's where Peter's at.
So now there again, we're seeing holiness right here.
Absolutely.
what's my life? You know, if I die today, I want the last few breaths of my life to be going toward furthering the gospel and the kingdom of God.
That's right.
And that's all that matters to me. That's holiness.
That is.
I mean, that goes again. I mean, the natural response right
So
here.
no wonder there's so many imposters for holiness,
Absolutely.
because that's the hard thing.
That's exactly right. And if we could get that one and get to this spot, we would start to see. I mean, you know, you can, and I know it's just beating a dead horse, you know, more and more and more.
We'll just beat it.
But, you know, I can, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, and I hope nobody reads further into what I'm saying than what I am saying. But we've got so much of an emphasis on you know, how much slobbering the preacher does when he's preaching, about, you know, how many people in the church shout, you know, during the service, or, you know, how many, you know, does whatever, that we're so focused on that we've actually put that in the spot of that's our holiness. And the whole time we're looking right here and we're seeing right here that there's actually a spot that I can get my heart to through the help of the Spirit of God, to where I'm in the jaws of death over the gospel. And when I get out, the natural response for anybody is, man, thank you, God, you got me out of that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be an idiot if I put myself back in this. But the natural response is to flee, but he's holy.
You're right.
That's the separation. There's
That's
that
exactly
separation
right.
from the natural response to the Spirit of God being in me and me saying, hey, there's something bigger driving me.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
You're right. That's so important to see that, what holiness really is.
Yes.
It's not an article of clothing.
Right.
That's not holiness.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's not how short or how long your hair is. It's not, you know, whether you wear jewelry or you know, whether, you know, a woman has makeup on.
That's right, Dwayne.
Yeah, because you can do all of that stuff and respond like what most of us would in this case, in that when we got out of that jail, the last thing on our mind is going to be furthering the gospel. It's going to be saving my dog hide and let me get out of here and hide.
Right.
And
Now, I will say this: if your holiness does drive you and move you to some of those things,
right,
then that's
wonderful.
perfectly in order.
Absolutely,
But
that's
we
wonderful.
cannot substitute the way we, you know, just simply things we wear for holiness.
Right,
And what we wear is a result of holiness.
Exactly. You know, yes, and respond just like everybody out there in the world would. That's what the Bible's talking about when it says to come out from among them.
That's it.
You know, it's not telling me and you that, you know, if a sinner goes down here to this grocery store, you can't go to that grocery store, or, you know, over here to the fair, or, you know, God forbid, you know, you take your kids to play ball, you know. And we say, well, the Bible said to come out from among. That's not what the Bible's talking about. It's talking about that mindset, that state of mind. And we've talked about this in so many podcasts where we see over and over, you know, God passing judgment and saying, just like with the Moab thing, you know, God passes judgment and says this Moab thing. Well, we see that God didn't cut Moab off. He said that what he's talking about is that mindset. He's saying that position of their heart where they were driven by something that wasn't him, and he's saying, I'm cutting that off. If you got that spirit in you and that mindset's driving you, I'm shutting you off. And so that's what he's talking about come out from among the world. He's saying the way that they think and the way that they see a situation, we can't do that no more.
Right.
We have to look or live for the kingdom. It's got to be just like Peter here. You know, old Peter, I mean, he gets out of jail, natural response, hide.
Yeah.
Peter goes, like you said, to the very spot he knew. Where are they going to go?
It's very likely that Herod's going to have his people here tomorrow. I mean, or as soon as he figures this out, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
you know, well, when we read just a few chapters back, when we went over it, when they beat him and told him to quit preaching about Jesus and locked them up, done whatever they done, and then some of them come in and they said, hey, them dudes you're looking for, they down in the church preaching again. So, I mean, now we're seeing that that come out from among them. We're seeing that response
Right.
that just does not make sense
That's right.
to somebody out in the world.
That's exactly right.
And that's the holiness. Yes. Okay. You got something else?
No, sir.
Okay. Verse 13. And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, so he's went to Mary's house, where they're having prayer meeting. And as he knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda. And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate. Now we're about to see everybody's mind blowed again. They're praying for something, and when their prayer get answered,
They're like, nah, I can't be.
yeah, I mean, no, not so. So, this damsel, this young lady, Rhoda,
Well, we don't know what they were actually praying. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure they were praying for Peter's, safety or whatever.
Right.
But whatever they're praying for, it don't seem like they're expecting Peter,
Right, Peter
to
to come
show up at
walking
the
up.
door.
Right,
Because I
yes.
mean, for goodness sake, he's
Right,
He's
yeah.
16 soldiers here. Like you brought up, I mean, that just seems so impossible.
you're exactly
So
right.
maybe I'm sure they're praying for him, but maybe it's that Herod would have
Herod's heart,
mercy
right,
or
yes,
something
yes.
would happen during that would,
Yes,
whatever.
and that's sort of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Pray that God touches, God touch Herod's heart, that, he
Yeah.
has mercy
Yeah.
on him. Maybe a good beating like we've seen before,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
let him go.
yeah.
Yes, and so, they're certainly, like you say, they're not expecting to
But
see.
boy, God has went far above and beyond.
Does he not always do
Amen.
that?
Amen.
Always outdoes himself. Okay, so now she's went back and told him that, hey, Peter's standing out here at the gate. What are we praying for Peter for, man? He's standing out here at the gate. So I could imagine that would be kind of like, all right, listen, we're serious. You don't start fooling around and playing.
Yeah.
Okay, in verse 15, and they said unto her, again, thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, it is his angel. So, she said, Peter's outside. And they're going, don't you start carrying on with that stuff. This is no time to be doing that. And she just keeps up, hey, Peter's outside at the gate. And finally, when she won't shut up, they just look at her and say, it's not Peter, it's his angel.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter's,
Yeah.
like you said, 16 soldiers, one's handcuffed to his right arm, one handcuffed to his left arm.
Yeah. I looked at that and I got to thinking, what did they mean by that when they said it is his angel? And, sometimes we would think, well, he's talking about something supernatural. That looks pretty obvious here that he's talking about something supernatural that they're saying, well, maybe it's his ghost or, his guardian
Right.
angel maybe or something. But if you look at, and I'm just going to present this, I don't
Yes.
know what was in their
Right.
mind, but let me present this. Angel, if you translate that into Greek, it's angelos.
Yes.
All right. So angelos, the meaning of that is messenger. So if we look at that from that, that context, that
Yes.
they're saying, no, it's his messenger. Now, it was pretty common in that day for a prisoner to have folks that would send messages back and forth.
Right, like
We've seen
Paul
that-
did.
Yeah, John the Baptist
Right,
actually,
yes.
And so he had scribes that would come. And so when we see angel here, if we translate that into messenger, then it's possible that they think, well, it can't be Peter. He's in prison, but it might be somebody
Right. He's
speaking
sent.
on behalf
Yes.
of him.
Yes, he's got word to somebody and
Yeah.
sent him up here.
Yeah, and so,
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine, looking at it from that lens, that's very well possibly what they were thinking.
and if we look at the whole thing in that context, God sent a messenger to do all this.
Right.
Now I know it says angel, and,
Right.
and we've done covered that a lot of times.
Right. Yes.
And I think it's more than just some angelic being
Right.
in a lot of
Sure.
these passages. That
Sure.
I think it's actually Jesus Christ in some of these passages.
Well, and I wondered.
So if we translate that into messenger of the Lord, well, that could have been Jesus Christ right there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I mean,
that was the first thought.
You would know. You would think, well, Peter would know Jesus because he actually walked with Jesus, so he wouldn't have called him just a messenger. He would call him
Right.
Jesus, and that very well could be true.
It
But
could
we know that God has sent this messenger, whoever it is,
You're right.
to do this.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and in my mind, that's exactly where my mind went. You know, when I got to looking at some of this with this angel, and the first thought was, well, Peter would know, but then
It was dark.
right, my mind went to the two disciples when they were on the road to Emmaus.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
and from what I could gather from that, and that was a pretty good journey.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you know, the Lord walked up and said, "Hey fellas, how you doing?" And then, "Oh, well, here
Yeah,
I'm here where I'm going." Yeah,
Yeah.
and turned out. I mean, they were in a conversation,
Yeah.
and they never realized it until later. And then one of them said, "Man, did my heart not burn within me?"
Yeah.
So is it possible? I think it is.
Well, also, the two women that saw Jesus at the tomb thought he was a gardener.
Thought he was a gardener,
Yeah.
and until he spoke Mary's name, she was just saying, "Just tell me where he's at. If you'll just tell me, I'll go get him.
Yep.
You don't have to bother yourself. I don't want you to go help me. Just tell me where he's at." So yeah, I mean it's possible, and that's kind of where my mind went.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and I don't know for sure that
No, I don't either, but it's an interesting thought.
it is very
Yeah.
interesting, the very interesting point that you made about about that being a messenger. So you know, they're thinking, okay, no, it's not Peter. You know, it's angel, messenger. You know, it's somebody. It could be Moses, but it ain't Peter. We know where Peter is.
Right.
All right, you got anything else?
No, sir.
All right, verse 16. But Peter, could you imagine poor old Peter out here
Yeah.
in our debating on who's the
Dude, he's been laying in a prison all night. You know, the Lord just blew his mind with all that's happened. You know,
Yeah, he's probably chomping at the bits to tell him what happened.
And his own people won't even let him in the door.
Sitting there here knocking. Hello, can I come in? so verse 16. But Peter continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. Now, and I think that word "astonished" there, because in light of all the things that we've already talked about, is probably a mild way of putting their reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, they knew it was not Peter. I mean,
Right.
it's anybody, but it's not Peter. Open the door up. There stands Peter.
Yeah,
So
that would be pretty astonishing.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it would. And of course, in my mind, I think, man, where would your faith go if you saw that? But then
Yeah.
at the same time, you look back over your life as a believer, and maybe not this exact thing, but as a believer, just a year or two. And you stop and you look back and evaluate, and it's just like you see one miracle after the other that God's done in our life. So when I started thinking that, then I thought, well, no, probably not, because
true.
the place that we've allowed our heart to go to, it's like God moves and just reveals Himself in a way that you look and you're like, man, that had to be God. And a week later, we're like the children of Israel.
Yeah.
I'm just, hey, man, where's God? Just send me
true.
back to Egypt. Let me go
That's
back to
true.
Egypt.
That's
So,
very true.
I mean,
It's the nature of man.
it is. It really is. We're seeing here that there's an intent that God planned for us as believers when He sent His Son. We're starting to see that Jesus said that I came to seek and to save. That
Yeah.
we're seeing that
Yeah.
He's talking
Yeah,
about
that's
here.
good. Yeah.
Okay, you got something else?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so, and this next verse is one of the reasons that I say astonished is probably a mild way. Verse 17, but he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, go show these things unto James and to the brethren. And he departed and went into another place. So now, and I'm thinking, for one, Peter's going, oh, pipe down,
Well, I kind of look at it like, y'all shut up. I've been standing outside knocking for 30
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
well, and
I've been knocking for 30 minutes. It's cold out there.
right, but and I started thinking about that, and I thought, well, for one, were they making such a commotion that he actually started thinking, hey, man, calm down, because
They're going to draw attention.
right, yeah. And then, of course, the other place my mind went was he telling them, hey, would y'all be still for just a minute? I've got a really cool God story to tell you.
I think maybe that's the case. Don't you?
Yeah. I do. And wondered, because like you say, I mean, he's standing out there beating on that door, and here they're going, well, Peter, Peter, Peter. And he's going, whoa, 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 whoa. Just listen. Let me tell you my God story I got today.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, he calms them down, tells them the story, and then off he goes. And verse 18, now as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Peter. Now, right, here's another one of the spots that my mind went to wonder. Now, could you imagine you on one side and me on the other side, handcuffed to a man?
How you going to explain this?
And how do you explain it to your own self?
There's no explanation.
I mean, and it's
Can you imagine the fear that was in these men when they woke up
knew.
and saw that?
They knew.
They did.
But I mean, what else could they do? I mean, you've got one handcuffed here, one handcuffed there. You've got 14 other soldiers, and you look at the time, and you think about the training that these soldiers now, and I've kind of dabbled a little bit into some of that, especially with the Romans, and the garrison was one of the ones that we read about the garrison, especially through the book of Acts. We'll see this garrison. Peter actually talks about how that he was let down of a basket when he was, the garrison had surrounded Damascus and he was let down in a basket, because, well, that garrison was, from what I could gather, would be like what me and you would call today's Delta Force or Navy SEAL. I mean, this was very, very well trained soldiers.
Right.
Now, I would imagine that if Herod thought that it was needful that I put 16, think about that, 16 men on one individual.
I'm probably going to put my best.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably not going to get the ones that, I'm going to take off a KP duty. Yes. This is going to be men that, if some of his followers come in and try to storm, these 16 guys, they could probably handle, a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So, and that's where my mind goes. So could you imagine the shock, of this? And of course, you start to think about some of these guys that were trained, and I know like the Delta Force, I've heard stuff about them, and the way that they pick them is they go through to the special operations officers is what they're called. But you got like your Navy SEAL, your Army Ranger, your Green Beret, your Marine Recon, some of the elite forces in the armed forces, and they select just certain ones out of the soldiers that they will actually consider for this Delta Force. And some of the things that I've watched on some of them, you're talking about one man that is put in a situation that would be similar to something that they would normally send like SEAL Team 7, where you would send a whole unit. And these Delta Force, they send just one. So the ego of these men, it's got to be pretty elevated. I mean, when you stop and think that you're trained enough and disciplined enough that your country would consider you out of everybody by yourself to go in and do this job, understandably you would kind of get a little exalted in yourself, and I kind of imagine these fellas right here being the ones that were trained so well. While they probably didn't take the situation for granted, but they were pretty confident in the fact, we're going to keep this dude.
Yeah, they didn't anticipate any trouble.
No. And so, and they wake up, and he's gone. Yeah. Where's he at?
Yeah.
And I would think, you start hollering down the hall at the other 14 soldiers that's down through the, hey, dudes, where'd this man go? But he's gone. And rightfully so. I mean, we're going to see what happens to him right here. Right. Okay, you got something?
No, sir.
Okay. Verse 19, and when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea and there abode. So, yes. I mean, he killed every one of them.
Yeah, and in Herod's mind, there has to be, there can be nothing here but some kind of a
failure on their part.
Yeah, I mean, there had to be some kind of conspiracy. That's the word I was trying to get
yes.
at. Against Herod and against,
Right.
These men had to be part of that conspiracy.
Right.
I mean, there's no way this man could have just escaped. There's no way that you could have slept while he got those chains off.
Right.
There has to be something going on. Yes. You're worthy of death.
Right. And that's exactly what happened. And I sort of feel like that's why that, we see that it says he goes from Judea down to Caesarea. And I don't know this. Now, I'm just taking, a poke in the dark. But my mind tells me that, he was either so frustrated or so convinced that there was some sort of a conspiracy going on here that he just said, I got to get away from here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Let me go down here and just kind of chill. And that's sort of where my mind went.
I think you're right. Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, my thought process there. And in verse 20, it says, and Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon. But they came with one accord to him, and having made Blastus, the king's chamberlain, their friend, desired peace, because their country was nourished by the king's country. So, and I guess he went down and said, well, let me go down here and, poke another bear, deal with another problem, whatever. But it comes to Tyre and Sidon, and he was displeased with them, but, they're sucking up to him because,
we need him. We need him.
Yeah, I mean, there's some food that...
We need him on our side.
Right. Yeah. And so, we're going to see this actually go a bit too far, and there is a result that comes from it. And, of course, and again, another one of them rabbit holes for me.
I like it.
But and I just, when I see this, my mind just goes to that spot that, and I'm not saying Herod was a righteous man. I mean, it's obvious that he was not. But what I am saying is he was a benefit to Tyre and Sidon. But Tyre and Sidon were so consumed with their self. And you've got this self-will, this lustful desire that's just natural in man, self-preservation, that they're pushing the envelope for their own benefit. But we're going to find out that the end result sometimes of that selfish, self-willed motive can really cause a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where where I see this going as I was reading it. You just think they're thinking, boy, we've got him now. Let's just keep buttering him up.
Right.
But it don't work out that way.
Right.
Okay, you got something?
No, sir.
Okay. And so in verse 21, and upon a set day, Herod, arrayed in royal apparel, sat upon his throne and made an oration unto them, which is basically just a public speech. Yes. And verse 22, and the people gave a shout, saying, it is the voice of a God and not of a man. So, they're really landed on thick because, again, this self-willed spirit that's in them, self-preservation, and we got to butter him up. We need food. And so they go to the point of the voice of a God, none of a man, and again, this is my rabbit hole. How often do we see in today's society that self-preservation, and where I'm going with this, I think about evolution. Now, there's only one thing in my mind that would drive this evolution the way that it's been driven, and that is this. If we can convince ourselves that we were not created then that means there's